You are listening to Para X.
Sailing all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. All the 9 waves we are come sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. We are coming sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. All the 9 waves we are coming sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. All the 9 waves we are coming sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. All the 9 waves we are coming sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore. All the 9 waves we are coming sailing, all the 9 waves run to shore. Sons and daughters will be weeping, wailing, your land will be ours forevermore.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring a Cauldron. Well, okay, Stirring the Cauldron. I think it's a little warm here, and my cauldron's been bubbling over today. But where else but on the Para X radio network? Now, the opening song tonight was Over the Waves by Spiral Dance, and I'd like to thank them once again for allowing Tim and I to use their music on our shows. Now, I've got a very interesting show for you tonight. My guest is author and motivational speaker Josie Varga, and her first book, Footprints in the Sand, A Disabled Woman's Inspiring Journey to Happiness, was published in 2004. But Josie doesn't consider herself disabled, despite having both cerebral palsy and bilateral hearing loss. On the contrary, she believes that her disability is her strength and not her weakness. Now, since book one, she's gone ahead and written several others, including Visits to Heaven, Divine Visits, and Visits from Heaven, which is what we're going to be primarily talking about tonight. It's a compilation of remarkable experiences by ordinary people who've been communicating with in some way by loved ones who've passed on. And these accounts, interestingly enough, which is really, I like this very much, come with some sort of validation from the communicator, which makes them difficult to dismiss as merely some sort of a dream or wishful thinking. It also has contributions from several noted experts in the field. So now that I've dangled the carrot, let's bring Josie in and get started. Josie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Marla. How are you?
It's good. I got the intro out. My tongue is just not. I guess I'm feeling guilty because I as you heard before the show, I kind of told Tim I had to go turn off the air conditioner, and that was probably guilt smacking me, karma smacking me in the back of the head.
Yeah, because, Tim and I have had a very rough winter here on the East Coast. So,
Uh-huh.
like I said, no sympathy from me and Tim.
I tried, but I just, I'm just not the weather goddess today, and I couldn't do any different. So, sorry again on both counts, but let's talk a little bit about the books. And one thing is that it's such a comforting thought, really, that life does not cease to exist after we die, that our
Right.
soul remains alive and well, so to speak, and we still live on just in a different form. Now, about 5 months after your first book, Footprints in the Sand, was published, you had an experience that completely changed your view of the afterlife, and it was kind of vivid. You thought it might have been a dream. It was about meeting up with someone on the other side. Tell us about it.
My husband worked with someone who worked in the World Trade Center. Okay, he was his former boss and friend, and he died in the World Trade Center attacks of 9/11. Now, his name was Rich, Marla, and I spoke to him on the phone, but I never met him, okay? I saw pictures of him and his wife and his son because they would send us Christmas cards, but other than that, I never met him. I didn't know his wife or anything about the family, okay? So, the book Footprints in the Sand had an epilogue in the back that was devoted to his friend Rich because prior to his passing, his father died 2 years before he did. And he sent an inspirational email out to his coworkers and his friends. It was pretty much talking about the importance of life and how each wasted minute was a crime. And my husband came up to me and said, this is so beautiful. Do you think you could include it in your book? And it touched me so much that I decided to put it in Footprints in the Sand in the back because it was a last minute thought. I included it as the epilogue. So one night I have this extremely vivid dream and I find myself, it felt like I was going down this long hallway. And I wasn't really walking, it was more like gliding because I don't remember my feet ever touching the ground, but I could literally feel myself moving. So I go down this long hallway, and I remember going in a door on the right, and I walk into this room, and there are desks and windows everywhere, okay? And all of a sudden, I look up, and I see my husband's friend, Rich. Now remember, I never met him before. But yet, when I saw him, Marla, I instantly knew it was him. And he says to me, Josie, thank you for mentioning me in your book.
Wow.
Now, for reasons I cannot explain, to this day I don't know, because people ask me this question all the time, but I looked back at him and I said, Rich, you have to prove to me that this is really you. Okay? And when I say I said it, there were no words. It was all mind-to-mind communication. It was all telepathic communication. Okay? So I say, Rich, you have to prove to me that this is really you. And with that, he walks over to a desk, Marla. He picks up a cell phone. It was one of those flip phones. He opens it up, and he shows me a picture of him, his wife, and his son. And he looks at me and he says, Boston is okay. Okay, really clear. Boston is okay. Now, I understood that this was a message that I had to get to his wife, but at the time, I had no idea whatsoever what this meant and why I was supposed to tell his wife this, okay? But the next thing I know, I'm kind of like going through a window, and I find myself on what looked like a street, and I look up, and it looked like he was in the back of a pickup truck, standing behind his wife and son, okay? And he looks at me, gives me this look like, okay, Josie, go ahead, give her the message, and kind of pushes me forward. And when he did that, I woke up in a sitting position, panting and out of breath, feeling like something hit me in my chest, And it scared the daylights out of me. I mean, I woke up and I didn't know what the heck happened, okay? But I said to myself, oh my God, this was so real. I have to tell Rich's wife that Boston is okay. So what I did is I called my husband, who was already at work. I told him what happened. And his reaction, Marla, didn't surprise me one bit. His reaction was, you're insane. You want me you want me to call his wife, who just lost her husband, and tell her Boston is okay. I mean, come on, you got to be kidding me, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was extremely persistent, and I said to him, okay, I've got an idea. How about I email you telling you what happened, and you forward it to Richard's sister-in-law, because Richard's sister-in-law and my husband worked in the same field. They both worked in the financial field, and they had each other's email. So he was able to contact her. And he said to me, okay, fine, I'll do it. Well, later he said that when he hit the send button, I sent him the email. When he hit the send button to send it to Richard's sister-in-law, he said he wanted to retrieve the email immediately, because he was like, oh my God, she's going to think I'm crazy. Oh my God, I can't believe I just did this, Mm-hmm. And he tells me this, and I'm not feeling, that at all. I'm feeling very happy, because I knew that this was something that I had to do. But again, I didn't know what Boston is okay meant. Mm-hmm. So about 2 weeks later, we're on vacation, and we hadn't heard anything, and he was thinking, oh my God, they think I'm crazy. I can't believe you made me do this, on and on. So he gets a message on his BlackBerry. And it wasn't until he read it aloud that we realized, oh my God, he's reading the message. And basically, Richard's sister-in-law, wanted to know how I knew that they had a brother in Boston. And his wife, was considering selling the home and moving to Boston. But she felt guilty, because they had purchased the house right before he died. So she felt guilty about selling the house. So he's reading this. He read it 2 times. The second time he read it, we both went, ah! Because it hit me, oh my God, So what does this mean? This means that he was trying to tell his wife, it's all right with me, you can move to Boston. But it also means that somebody who is deceased, somebody who is on the other side, communicated with me. Well, not only that, his message was validated by his family. Wow. Well, I tell you, it shook me to the core. It wasn't like, I suddenly said, okay, world, wonderful, I'm going to go shout that life never ends and love never dies on the top of a mountain. No. When it first happened to me, I was afraid. I didn't know what to do, and I thought people would think I was nuts. So I didn't say anything. Only close people I would talk to about it. And then one day I'm talking to my sister-in-law, and she says, Josie, don't you realize that you've been given a gift? And I'll tell you, Marla, that really hit me. And I realized, she's right. I have been given a gift, and I need to, I wanted to research this phenomenon so that I knew I wasn't alone, And what happened was just amazing. People were just coming to me like this. I mean, we can talk about it later, but I've been told many times that I was meant to write this book, and that Rich himself led me to ARE, And the way it all happened in the beginning was just really amazing, because I tried to write Visits from Heaven, and nothing was going right. I mean, I wasn't getting phone calls, and nothing was going right. And I said to myself, okay, I guess it's not the right time. So I put that book aside, and I started writing Make Up Your Mind to Be Happy, I mean, one day, I picked up a pile of papers, and out fell a picture of Rich and his son. And it hit the floor, and when I saw it, it was like I heard something in my head say, okay, Josie, now's the time. It was so strong that I just put my folder for Make Up Your Mind to Be Happy aside and started doing research for Visits from Heaven. And the first website that I came to was a website called towardthelight.org with a woman named Juliet Nightingale. She had a radio show, she was an incredible woman. But I wrote her and told her what I was doing. And the very next day, she sends me an email and she says, Josie, I am meant to help you, so I'm going to help you. Well, what's ironic about that? Now, remember, she emailed me back the next day. When my husband came home that night, I said to him, honey, I don't know why, but I contacted this woman named Juliet Nightingale, and something's telling me that I'm meant to contact her. And he looked at me, gave me that look like, oh boy, here you go again, kind of thing. But I ended up being right because she put me in contact with so many people. She had me on her radio show. She advertised my call for submissions. I mean, it was really unbelievable the way everything fell into place. So that's how it all happened, and I'm very, very proud of the book, but mostly I'm proud of the contributors because without them there would be no Visits from Heaven, But the thing that differentiates Visits from Heaven from a lot of the other books out there is that every story in the book is backed up by some sort of proof. That was my thing when I wrote the book. Like people would call me up and say, well, I was thinking of my father, and as soon as I thought of my father, the light would go on or the TV would go on and off. And maybe it was the spirit of the father. I'm not saying it wasn't, but that wasn't the type of story that I was looking for in this book. Every story had to be backed up by some sort of proof.
Yeah, and when you were saying that you felt really awkward telling Rich's wife about Boston, same thing happened to me in a slightly different way, but because I'm clairaudient, I get messages, I hear
me
them,
too.
and so I got this message. It was so weird. He identified himself as Dr. Mason. Don't know who that was, and he said they're trying to kill Judy. And that's all he said. And I thought, okay, Judy. Well, the only Judy I knew was one of my best friend's mother who was in the hospital. But I didn't know whether she believed or not, and
right.
I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to tell her. I mean, we've known each other since we were babies, so it's not like, here comes a stranger giving messages. And she knew what I did and all that. And so I did. I contacted her. I sent her an email too. I didn't want to call her. There's something so much better about email. And I said, believe it or not, but this is what I got, and I felt that it's my duty to pass it on to you. Do with it what you will. And basically that is our mission when we get messages. We're not supposed to be involved. We're supposed to pass it on. And her she called and found out she was in Missouri. Her mother was out here in California. And long story short, she found out from her sister that they had been over-medicating her mother like crazy. I mean, they were giving her like 3 different antidepressant meds and stuff.
Oh, my God.
And they really, actually, it was too late. She didn't make it through. But, just the fact that, you hear this and it's like, okay, what do I do? What do I do?
Mona, the thing is, you have to, and this is the hardest part for me, because I get messages like that too, is trusting what you get.
Yes,
because,
exactly.
Because the ego says, oh, wait a minute, no, I'm just thinking that, no, that's not what I heard, but your spirit says, no, Josie, yeah, Marla, yes, I am telling you. I'll give you an example of that. I use this story all the time. There's a story in my book called Misty Angel. I don't know if you read that one, but I always had a connection to that story. When I was writing Visits from Heaven, I often felt spirits behind me or with me when I was writing the story, and I'd say, okay, I'd actually say out loud, listen, don't reveal yourself, because if you do, I'm going to freak out, so please don't do that, And there was this one story called Misty Angel, and when I wrote the story, I sent it to the mother. She said to me, Josie, this story was so perfectly written. It was as if she was whispering in your ear as you wrote it. And it gave me the chills when she said that, because I felt her daughter's presence, okay? So I always felt a connection to this one girl in the book, Miss the Angel. And one day, I'm in my room, and I hear, call my mom, okay? In my mind, I hear, call my mom. And I knew instantly that it was Miss the Angel. And I thought to myself, call my mom? What, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to trust. So I went and I got my file with all the contact information, and I called Miss the Angel's mom, okay? And you know what she said to me? She said, Josie, I can't believe this. She said, today is my birthday. So I said, well, happy birthday from your daughter. Now, if I did not listen to that, if I did not listen to that voice, if I did not, if I didn't trust, I would have missed the opportunity to give her the message from her daughter. You know what I mean? So it's really amazing, but it's not easy to do. I mean, I've been researching the phenomenon for a long time now, and I think that's the hardest part for me, to actually let go and trust, because there's always that part of you that says, okay, is this just wishful thinking? And that's why when I wrote Visits from Heaven, and I coined the term Visits from Heaven, because I wanted every story to be backed up by proof, backed up by some sort of validation. You know what I mean? So
Exactly. And they are. And, you say that you don't, it is backed up by some proof. And you say that it's not your mission here to try and sway disbelievers, but it does strengthen the belief system in those that do believe, and also those who might be on the fence about the whole possibility, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean,
we need validation all the time. This is how we live. And this is validation in a wonderful way. So many stories. Go ahead.
Yeah, even me. I mean, I'm a total believer, as you know. But I always look for that validation too, because I always say, hey, but is it really what I'm thinking? It's just natural for us to feel that way. Like I'll tell you another story. I was very, very close to my godmother, and one day I was missing her. And I put on YouTube My Melody of Love by Bobby Benton. Remember that? It was an old song when I was a kid.
Yep.
Well, my godmother bought me that record on a 45. When I was a little girl, she gave me a Mickey Mouse. I never forget it. It was a Mickey Mouse record player. Okay, and the needle was Mickey Mouse's arm, and she brought it over, and we danced around to My Melody of, to the song, and I never forgot that. So on this day, I'm missing my godmother, and I put it on YouTube, and I'm listening to it, and I start sobbing, I start crying, and I looked up, and I said, Lucy, do you remember Lucy? Do you remember My Melody of Love? So that was that. I had a good cry, I went back to work, and that was that. Well, fast forward, about 2-3 weeks, and my husband comes up to me and says, honey, did Leah tell you the dream she had about Lucy? My kids called my godmother Grandma Lucy, okay? So I looked at my husband and I said, no, what happened? And he said, well, you ask her. So I said, okay. So I go up to my daughter Leah and I said, Leah, Daddy tells me that you had a dream about Grandma Lucy. What happened? Now, my kids are not familiar with record players and 45s and, because in this day and age of CDs and DVDs, they don't have that, okay? So she says, well, Mom, she said, Grandma Lucy walked up to this box and she opened it up, and there was this little stick sticking up, and it was something was going round and round, and I'm listening to this, Marla, and I'm like, I realized that, she was describing a record player, okay? So my heart is like pounding, And I went over to the computer and I looked for the Mickey Mouse record player that I used to have when I was a kid. I put a Mickey Mouse in record player, and the record player came up. And I showed my daughter. I said, "Leah, can you tell Mommy if this looks familiar?" And she goes, "Oh yeah, there you go." And that was the little stick that was sticking up. You know, the little thing that you put the record on. And my heart, I was just like, "Oh my God!" Now that is what you call a third-party sign. Now, when I cried out to my godmother and I said, "Lucy, do you remember Lucy? My melody of love." Well, here she is. She's answering my question. She's saying, "Yes, Josie, I do remember." Okay, but why did she go to my daughter? Why didn't she just come to me in a dream and say, "Yes, Josie, I remember"? And I'll tell you why. Because third-party signs are very validating, okay? Yeah. If she would have come to me, I might have thought, well, geez, I asked her, maybe this is just wishful thinking. But I can't discredit it. I can't deny it when it comes from my daughter who had no knowledge of it whatsoever. Okay? How do you explain that anyway than the fact that my godmother was with me that day and heard me when I asked her, "Do you remember Lucy?" So I love telling that story. I mean, my godmother was a very strong woman, and she's still a strong woman on the other side.
Yes, well, we never change. Leopards don't change their spots. And, you were talking about validating in the stories. In case people think that there is maybe, 10 or 12 stories in this book is huge. It's a big book. There's nearly 350 pages on my Kindle version. And that's a whole lot of proof, or a whole lot of, it leaves little room for much doubt.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because when I was working on the book with my editor, she said to me, "Josie, you could have easily made this 2 books."
Yeah, exactly.
She said, "You could have easily made this 2 books." But it's like, I wanted people to see the variety of signs, the different ways that people can contact you. I mean, as you know, there are many different types of visits from heaven, and people don't even realize it. Orbs and photographs and butterflies and dragonflies and dream contact and telepathic communication and smell.
Yeah.
Touch and sensation. Like, how many times? This happens to people all the time, okay? You're in a room and you sense a presence, okay? You sense a presence. But many people say, "Oh, it's just me. Oh, it's nothing." Do you know? I can't tell you how many times, like, I had a reading once and the medium said to me, "Boy, your godmother says you're very good at picking her up." And I laughed because I can always sense when she's around me. And there was one day when I was in my office and I sensed her. I knew that she was there, but I said, I've really been missing her, so maybe it's just my mind, maybe I'm just thinking things, okay? But I went upstairs and I found a 2010 dime. My godmother died in 2010, okay? And she has frequently left me 2010 dimes. And when I get them, I always acknowledge it and say, "Thank you, Lucy." And what happens is, it's like when our loved ones know that we recognize a certain sign as them, what do? They repeat it. And that's exactly what my godmother does. She knows that I recognize a 2010 coin as her, so I find 2010 coins all the time. Like, I'll ask her for a sign, I'll get a 2010 coin. It's pretty amazing. It's a beautiful thing. It really is.
It is.
Go ahead.
There's so many stories in the book, and they all differ little by little, as you go. But did you find in compiling all these stories, writing about them, and some of them you experienced yourself, did you find that there is a universal theme in all these stories, or are they just all completely random to each other?
No, I think that for the most part, in every type of visit from heaven, our loved ones want us to know that they're okay, that they love us. My universal theme, my slogan that I will say to the day I cross over is love never dies. Okay, that is the one thing that we can take with us when we go to the other side. We can't take our physical bodies, but that love, that energy stays with us, So I think that's the universal thing throughout the entire book. Every story proves that love never dies. What I like to describe, they're very different, Marla, in a lot of ways, because, obviously, our loved ones communicate in a variety of ways, but in a lot of ways they're also alike, And in a lot of ways they're also alike. So, and, if you would have asked me, like 15 years ago, whatever, Josie, will you write a book about afterlife communication? I would have looked at you like you had two heads. It's not something that I always believed in God. I always believed in the afterlife. Okay, I've always been a believer in angels. I was raised Roman Catholic. Okay, but did I ever think that I'd write a book about afterlife communication? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But when you have an experience like this, there's no turning back. I call it an STE, a spiritually transformative experience, And when you have these experiences, it changes your view of life. It changes you know what I mean? It's not only about the fact that there is life after death. It's once you understand that there is life after death, and that it is possible for the living to communicate with those on the other side. What does that mean, Marla? That means that we are much more than the physical body. You know what I mean? I mean, we didn't just come here to, come to Earth, learn, and die. That doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Why come here and have experiences and learn just to die? It just doesn't make any sense.
No.
At least to me it doesn't.
No, it doesn't at all. I say the same thing. And, and as you said, it seems that those on the other side are always comforting their loved ones by saying that they're fine, they're happy, they're enjoying the afterlife. It makes me wonder why we don't hear anything about disgruntled people over there, so much. Surely there have to be some who are unhappy and angry that they died and they're missing their old life, or maybe not. Maybe death is, as they say, the great healer. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I have heard through mediums that there are some people who come through and say they're unhappy. It's very rare. It's like they say if you die a very traumatic death, you might not even realize that you're dead. And
exactly.
You may be earthbound for a while. And, that whole thing scares me because I don't want to be earthbound, When I die, I want to go into the light right away.
But you know what I think? I think people that believe in the afterlife, and if they are taken quickly, unexpectedly, in a tragic way, I think those of us that believe that life doesn't end on this planet, after a short while, we'd figure it out. I think the people that get trapped, and this is just my opinion, the people that get trapped are those who didn't believe in an afterlife or thought it was just a bunch of bunk or thought, either you go straight to heaven or straight to hell. I think those are the trapped souls, not the ones that had the belief system beforehand, because at some point when you're walking around and nobody sees you, even though you're trying to make people see you and talking to people, some little V8 moment has to go on over your head.
Absolutely.
And say,
and that's why books like this are so important. It's so important for people to understand the afterlife and the fact that they have nothing to fear. That life does continue. It's really been remarkable for me. I mean, I have this group on Facebook based on my book, Visits from Heaven. I have two of them. One is an open group, one is a closed group. We have over 30,000 members now. And when I started the group, did I ever think that it would grow this much? No. But when I go on and, I read all the different stories, I mean, it's pretty remarkable. What's wonderful is that people are able to understand that they are not alone, because so many people, I'm telling you, over 80%, I don't know how, I read this online, I read this in so many reports, they say over 80% of people have some form of STE, some form of spiritual transformative experience, whether it be an afterlife communication, whether it be a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience or what have you, I don't know how they are able to come up with that number, because I'll tell you why. Although more and more people are coming forward, are coming forward with their experiences, there are still a lot of people who don't come forward,
Right.
who keep their experience quiet, who don't even understand what they experienced. I wrote another book called Visits to Heaven, which talks about near-death experiences. And I started writing Visits to Heaven when I wasn't even finished with Visits from Heaven. Okay? I know it's confusing, visits from, visits to, but...
No, it's not. It's the polar opposite. But
yeah, exactly. But my point, though, Marla, is I was talking to a friend of mine, and she told me that she hemorrhaged when she had her daughter, and what happened? She said she went into this void. She saw this this darkness. And as she was talking, I said to her, do you realize that you had a near-death experience? And she said to me, I had a what? I said, you had a near-death experience, okay? So I was explaining to her what that was. I mean, her initial reaction was, oh my God, I saw darkness. Oh my God, I was doomed or something, it was bad. And I said, no. I said, it wasn't that it was bad. You weren't going to hell or anything like that. I said, what you experienced was the void. A lot of people experience that because they don't cross over. They're close. Mm-hmm. Like when I experienced my visit with my husband's friend Rich, okay, there was a mist. Like I'm looking at him, it wasn't clear. Okay, I could see him, but it was like there was it was hazy, Yeah. And a lot of times when I've had other experiences, the same thing. I see this haze. And I talked to a friend of mine who had a near-death experience, and he said, yeah, there's a lot of people experience that because you're kind of at the halfway point, you don't cross over. And that's why you see that haze or that mist. But it's pretty amazing. It's kind of like when I was looking at his friend, I was almost squinting. I did not see him clearly. But what's interesting now, you say you're clairaudient. I'm clairaudient also, but I'm also hearing impaired. Okay.
Right.
So in real life, I can't hear. I have severe bilateral hearing loss. But when I hear spirit, Marla, I hear it loud and clear. There's no doubt in my mind whatsoever because I hear it in my head. I mean, I don't know how to explain that to people sometimes.
I know. Because are we actually hearing sound, or are we just hearing thought? I mean, it's really interesting. I'm
glad you said that. Because that's what I always say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had them yell in my ear, and I jump up, and then I think, I bet I'm the only one that heard that. I mean, nobody else heard it. It's just, that's how it happened. Now, we were talking with another interesting point when you're talking about the other book, Visits to Heaven. You're talking about NDEs and stuff. I kind of took it a little bit differently because, I don't know, it's a very weird experience. I'm going to tell it really, really quick. But a few years ago, I had a dream, as so I thought, that I was walking in the clouds with an elderly cousin of mine. And we didn't talk, But we continued walking until we saw a man in the distance who I instantly recognized as her husband, and he had died a couple of years before. And as we approached him, he held out his hand. And for some reason, I took her hand and put it in his. And then I woke up. And I was really kind of freaked out because it seemed as though I was handing her over to him, and I knew he was not alive. And I had just seen her the day before, and she was fine, so I kind of shook it off, went to work. But about an hour after I got there, I got a call from my cousin's nephew telling me that she had died in the night. So that kind of makes you wonder. I mean, was this a dream foretelling her death, or did I actually visit heaven, so to speak, and I'm putting heaven in parentheses, in quotations. Did I actually go there and hand her over? You know, I mean...
Yeah, many people do that. You hear that there's a book called Beyond Goodbye. It's like you assist, people when they cross over. It's pretty amazing that you were able to do something like that.
It sure is, and very surprising. Now, I want to switch, because we're running out of time, but I want to switch over to another book of yours that we'll just talk about a little bit, which is Divine Visits. Mm-hmm. And in the book, I believe there's something like 50 stories of divine visits. And it said, so this is what kind of interested me, in the blurb I read about the book, it said that these divine or angelic interventions are not such a rarity, and they happen on a pretty regular basis. Now, do you think that's something new? That there's more of a necessity now for divine visits, or has it always been that way and people are just
No, and I'm glad you brought that up. Edgar Casey predicted that these experiences would become more and more apparent as time went on, and that's what's happening. I mean, it's like more and more people are recognizing that there is an afterlife. More and more people are becoming spiritual, if you will. Okay? So I think that angels are making themselves more and more known than they ever did before. And that's because, our belief systems are changing. People are saying that they don't consider themselves religious. They consider themselves spiritual. I mean, you have to be open to it. Now, people always say to me, Josie, why you? Well, I don't know, but I do know that I believe in God. I believe in the afterlife, and I am open to it. I'm willing to help. So so no, I think that it hasn't always been that way. I think it always happened. Don't get me wrong. Sure. Angels have always been around and everything, but it's happening more and more. I mean, the stories in the book are absolutely incredible, and I actually had a divine intervention myself in the midst of writing the book. It's a long story. I don't know how much time we have left. How much time do we have left?
We've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, let me tell you real quick.
Yeah.
I didn't think, Marla, that I would ever top my experience with my husband's friend Rich. However, I have to be honest and say that my divine visit was unlike anything that's ever happened to me before. What happened was I went for my mammogram. And I have dense breasts, so every time I go, I always get a second letter back saying, you have to come for a second level ultrasound. Mm-hmm. Well, this time I get the letter back, and the letter says, we see something on the left side. Well, I never got that before. So I get this letter, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I got very nervous, okay? Mm-hmm. So I scheduled another mammogram and a second level ultrasound. And after she did the mammogram, she sent me in to the technician, and she did the, ultrasound. I'm laying on the table, and she's going over one spot on my breast over and over and over again. And, I knew it was not good. So she looked at me and she said, Mrs. Varga, I'll be right back. I have to go talk to the doctor. Well, when she said that, I shook from head to toe because I was like, oh my God, kind of thing. So right. I'm laying there, and I decided, well, I'm going to cry out to God. So in my mind, I said, God, is everything okay? And I heard back, clear as day, no. And I thought to myself, what? You know, like, what? You know? So again, I said, God, is everything okay? I heard back, no. So then I said something like, I was so distraught, I don't remember my exact words, but I said something like, well, Lord, if everything's not okay, you have to fix this, because I'm not done with my book. I'm not done with my work here. I have 2 young children. Please, I'm not ready to go yet. You know, I was going on and on like that. Mm-hmm. And then I cried out to my godmother. My godmother was extremely religious. She went to church every Sunday. You know, she believed in all the saints. She said all these novenas. You know, extremely religious. So that's why I thought of my godmother. I used to say to her, when she was alive, I say, Lucy, if anybody's going to heaven, it's you. So when you get up there, put in a good word for me, okay? And she would laugh, you know. Uh-huh. So on this day, I said, Lucy, if I ever needed you, Lucy, I need you now. Please, Lucy, help me. Okay, now you have to imagine I'm in a dark room, okay? I'm laying on the table, I'm topless, so I'm not going anywhere, okay? And all of a sudden, I see this orb descend from the ceiling. This white, bright orb with light protruding out of it. I'm laying on the table, I see this, and I'm thinking, okay, Josie, you definitely lost it, okay? Mm-hmm. So I rub my eyes. Open my eyes again. No, it's still there. So it starts to slowly descend, and then I realize, oh my God, something extremely divine is taking place here, and this complete peace and warmth came over me. You know, I wasn't afraid. I was completely content and happy. It stopped about 4 inches above my chest, moved to my right, and stopped. Okay. So I'm looking at on my right side at this beautiful, magnificent orb. I can't describe the beauty of this, okay? Mm-hmm. And as I reached out my hand to it, and I said, it's okay, I am not afraid, come to me. And I put my hand out. When I did, the center of the orb became purple. And it started to, get bigger and bigger, like encompassing the whole orb, and all of a sudden, the X-ray technician walked back in the room, and boom, the orb disappeared. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, oh my God! Now she continued with her scans, but I didn't give a damn about her scans because I was thinking about the beautiful orb, that I just witnessed. So to make a very long story short, I got a call from my OBGYN. Who told me that there was something on my left side that should not be there, and I needed to have a biopsy done. Okay, pretty much they were telling me they thought it was cancer. Okay, so I go for the biopsy, and then I had a long agonizing wait to get the results. Well, when I was waiting for the results, I contacted a friend of mine who, she's a medium, and I told her what happened in that room, and she said to me, in one of my questions in Divine Visits, she says that often our loved ones will appear as orbs of light, okay? Well, when I read that, I went, oh my God. So I called her up, and she said to me, Josie, when you cried out for your godmother, she manifested for you. She said, that was your godmother. And that was my thinking, because I cried out to my godmother, and within seconds, this beautiful white orb appeared. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that was amazing. So even though that happened and my gut was telling me that everything was going to be okay, I was still really scared. So anyway, 2 days later, I get a phone call from the doctor, and he says to me, Mrs. Varga, I normally don't do this. I normally don't make these phone calls. He says, but I'm absolutely amazed He said it looked really bad. It looked like cancer. He said, but it's not, it's benign. He goes, I don't understand it. So as he's saying this, I start sobbing, you know? Mm-hmm. And he says, no, you should be happy. You should be happy, right? Uh-huh. So, and how was I supposed to explain to him, Marla, what happened in that room, you know? How was I going to explain that, okay? So, basically, you know, I believe that my fate was changed in that room. And when I went for a follow-up visit, he said to me, you know what? He goes, cancer doesn't get smaller. He goes, cancer gets bigger. He goes, and your tumor, whatever you had, is smaller. He goes, I'm just amazed. And then I went to my OBGYN for an appointment after that. And I told him what happened in the room. And he admitted to me that that's exactly what they told him. You know, he had a letter in his hand that they thought it was cancer. So I got a question for you. Why would I cry out to God and say, is everything okay? And hear no twice if everything was okay, you know, right. if it wasn't cancer. So, I don't know if I ever have an experience for the rest of my life that would top that. I mean, it was the most magnificent, the most beautiful thing. And about 3 years ago, I had a reading with a medium, and he looked at me and he said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm being told that you're going to experience heaven on earth. That's what he said to me. And you know what, Marla? That was heaven on earth. That was just absolutely incredible. And, you know, what a blessing. So to this day, I mean, I have an appointment next month to go again for another mammogram, but so far I'm cancer-free. So far there is no more tumor or anything. So it's pretty amazing. It really is.
Yeah, divine visits are sometimes very, very divine. Not trying to be funny, but they call them that for a reason, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes it's not something that drastic. Sometimes, you know, you meet someone, you know, there are so many stories, for example, cause, you know, people being stranded, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, somebody shows up, you know, with help, with gas or whatever, out of nowhere, you know? Yeah. And there are so many stories like that. So I think that we are never really alone. We think we are, but we are never really alone. You know, there's always somebody watching after us.
Yeah, and I think, too, that when you get a divine visit, when it's angelic, not all angels have wings and the harp and a halo. I mean, they will come to us in various forms. You know, who gives the mother help when her child is under a car? You know, who helps lift that car? You know, some guy will run out of nowhere and help. You know, well, that guy, he ran out of nowhere and he looked like a normal guy, and then he was gone. Makes you wonder, you know. So I think calling it a divine visit is correct, but don't expect, you know, the harp, the gown, the halo, and the wings, because
most of the experiences in the book, they did not have wings. They did not have a halo and a gown or anything like that. Most of the experiences, they look like regular, normal people. They come to us in ways that we will understand, you know? Yeah. I mean, think about it. If an angel came down with wings, everybody would be like running, pretty much. You know?
Depending on the wings, yeah. I mean, I just saw Maleficent and the movie Maleficent, and she had magnificently huge wings. Yeah, I think I'd run from those black flapping wings, but, you know. I'm not afraid of harps or halos, so that part would be all right.
So, I mean, but yeah, the stories are pretty incredible. I'm very proud. I'm proud of all my books, let me tell you. And I'm doing one now. The fourth book in the series will be about deathbed visits. And you know, I'm really excited about that book as well. So this will be the fourth book in the series. So it's, but again, did I ever think that I would get to this point? No, but everything happens for a reason, and I'm truly blessed. I really am.
Yes, you are. And we're blessed that we have your books to read because it's a fascinating book. And as I said, it's not something that you're going to sit down and read in 5 minutes. Well, at least, visits from heaven isn't. Maybe some of the other ones might be 10 pages shorter or something. But, they're good. They're inspirational. They open eyes and they're not going to open the eyes of somebody who refuses to believe, but if people have an open mind enough to listen.
Well, that's what I always say. I don't want to change minds, Marla. I want to open minds. So
exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. And somewhere down the line, we're going to have you back to open a few more minds because, there are so many stories that we didn't get to and so many questions that I still have that we didn't get to. But thank you for writing those books because they make people think twice about the finality of it all, and it really isn't final. It's just, like I said, living life in another form, but
absolutely,
still alive and well in some way or not. Now, before we have to dance on out of here, I want to make sure that people know where they can find your books, where they can find you, and also to find out more about your speaking engagements or events. So where should people go?
The best way to find me is to go on my website, which is www.josie, Josie Varga, Varga.com. I usually put all my engagements on my website. I'm in the midst of teaching an online class for Ego Cases ARE right now, and the class is about training your mind to think positive. So in addition to everything I do on the metaphysical side, I'm also a motivational speaker. So I'm proud of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. And also there are several YouTube videos out there that you've done, so people can just type in your name at YouTube and you will magically appear in several different forms.
It's magic.
So it's magic. It has to be. Well, when you stir the cauldron, everything is magic, right?
Yeah, let's go.
So I really do want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. And again, Visits from Heaven is a great book with very inspiring stories. And we're going to talk about that and other things down the line on another show because there's just so much to hear. And I want to thank everybody else for being here tonight. And I know I mentioned that my Beltane show on April 30th is going to be with Dave the Bard. And I'm excited about that, but even more excited because I heard from him yesterday. He's got a new album out, and he'll be sending me the MP3 of the album so that we can play some of the songs, the new songs on the show as well. So that's going to be terrific. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at this same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2014. Moonlight Hall by Kevin MacLeod, licensed through Incompetech.com.